Hey guys, welcome back to another video. It is me, Mysterious Cameraman, and today we're going to be doing a very interesting video. So I'm kind of discussing, I really was watching the Avengers over the weekend, and I realized that Avengers 1 is a lot like DC Legends' Tomorrow Season 1. So I thought I kind of wanted to talk about it in a video. Before we get into it, I just want to discuss something quickly. I know I haven't been uploading a lot in 2024. I promised a lot of videos. Here's what happened. No joke, the day after the Fan Film Awards, literally 24 hours after the Fan Film Awards aired, I was on my computer, I think 9 or 10 hours leading up to the Fan Film Awards. Right when, literally 24 hours after the award, the fan belt on my computer died. So I was editing these videos in 2024 on my school Chromebook. So I've been waiting to get a new computer. I just got one. So this is my first video with a new computer so I can actually start making content again. So that's just why I haven't been able to, because I can't make videos on my school Chromebook. I'm sorry. Okay, besides that, let's jump into this thing. So this is a very interesting video because I kind of just noticed this. It's a very interesting concept because it's not such an obvious one. I'll say that. It's a very interesting thing, but I noticed it. I was like, wait a second. Okay, so hear me out, right? We have Legends. So hear me out, right? We have Carter, right? He's going to be our Phil Coulson. He's, important, but not so important. And he kind of, disappears someone into the... And, okay, fine. And they're doing this to avenge him. Okay, so hear me out. We have, Rip Hunter. He's going to be our Nick Fury. Nick Fury plays a big part in this Avengers movie. That's pretty undoubtable. Even though Rip Hunter does play more of a role in Legends than Nick Fury does in Avengers, they are still very prominent characters that bring the team together. I think that's a very important one. Now, hear me out. We have Adam as our Iron Man, that makes sense. Then, we have Captain America is going to be our Sarah Lance, because, again, eventually, Captain America is going to take over the Avengers, just like how Sarah Lance eventually takes over the Legends. Then, following that, we have Thor, and Thor's actually going to be Kendra. And I know this is another interesting one, but you'll see why I'm placing Kendra as Thor. Then, we have Hulk, and that's actually going to be Firestorm, so that's going to be both Martin Stein as well as Jefferson Jax. And that's another interesting one. I know it doesn't seem obvious. I know it seems a little odd. But, again, hear me out. So, we have that bunch, I think, at least. I think that's what we're at. Okay, then we have Hawkeye and Black Widow. And that's actually me, Captain Cold, and Heatwave. And Heatwave is going to be Hawkeye, and Black Widow is going to be Captain Cold. Okay, so this definitely seems like a little of a stretch right now. I get that you might be thinking this is a stretch, but hear me out. Trust me, this does make sense. And I know it might not seem like it makes sense, but this actually has some logic to it. And I know that sounds stupid, but there's actually logic and reasoning behind why this makes sense. Okay, so we have Adam as our Iron Man. And even though... Okay, so I think we have to go back a little more. We have Black Widow as Captain Cold. So the reason why I have this here is because I think that this makes perfect sense. I already explained the Captain America one, because Sarah Lance, obviously. Hulk and Firestorm, that also makes sense. They become a bigger being. As for Black Widow and Captain Cold, here's why. Black Widow eventually is going to sacrifice herself to get something, but not going to be the big sacrifice of the film. That's important. Because even though Captain Cold sacrifices himself and he's the big sacrifice of the season, he doesn't die in the finale. He's not the big ending. By the time the finale comes around, we barely remember that Captain Cold died because he's kind of in the back. He's not avenged. I think that's the same for Black Widow. Once the final battle comes around, it's not about Black Widow anymore. It's just about stopping Thanos. It's the same here. Once the final battle comes around, it's not about avenging Snart. It's about just stopping Savage. And I think that's a very interesting one, but I think that also makes sense. As for Thor and Kendra, this is what I'm proud of. Kendra has a very big connection to the main villain, just as Savage has a connection to Kendra. Thor has a connection to Loki. And really, even though Thor is the only one that can really stop Loki, Kendra's really the only one that can stop Savage, even though at the end, everyone stops the main villain. And I started thinking this is a little close. But then if we look even deeper, Mick becomes a villain for part of the season, just as Hawkeye becomes a villain for part of the film. And Mick really only becomes a good guy towards the very end. Or really comes back around towards the very end of the season. Just as Hawkeye only becomes a good guy right before the final battle. And I think that's just another very interesting thing. And then we go back to Rip Hunter. Rip Hunter kind of leads everyone. He brings everyone together. He wears a trench coat. And he also does have moments where he is kind of the main hero. We have the Wild West duel, and we have other parts of the thing when he basically has to save everything. And Nick Fury does have those points as well, even though it's a little less shown. Nick Fury has points where he has to do things. He is then that whole fight when the Avengers, when the helicarrier is attacked. He is a huge part in that, so he has to deal with that as well, and I think that makes sense. As for Adam, in episode 7, I believe, when they get attacked by the pirates and the ship's breaking down, he has to go outside the ship and repair things even though it could kill him. And the same happens for Iron Man. He goes outside the ship into the wind lifter spinny thing, and he gets really badly hurt and almost dies. Again, I feel like this is again, you could say this is a stretch, but I also feel like it's kind of funny. The fact that it does make sense. Watch, if you've seen Legends of Tomorrow Season 1, watch Avengers, you'll see how it kind of makes sense. And because this came after Avengers, it will make sense that this is what they're basing parts of it on. Having the betrayer, having what you wouldn't think is the main character kind of become the leader. Having that one guy who kind of brings everyone together. It's a lot of things that you wouldn't think about that are actually really important. Because you wouldn't really think that Avengers is connected to DC Legends. But I think that if you're really thinking about it, and you're like, what would you base DC Legends off of? You base it off Avengers. I think that's a pretty thing that you wouldn't base it off. Because they really needed to get it. They have a lot of these misfits. And it's the same for the Avengers. Even though these are the main character of the universe, and these are not the main characters of the universe, I think you could definitely see where that's coming from. Because I think the Avengers is such an important thing, and even though DC Legends isn't so important to the Arrowverse, I think you have to really think about what DC Legends actually, at the time DC Legends had to be starting written, when it started, it would have to be I'm not saying this wrong, but DC Legends had to have started writing in 2013, 2014. If it started airing in 2016. So, by that, thinking, you really would have had to start thinking about that when Avengers came out. So I think it's always something to be thinking about. Do you think that Avengers led way to DC Legends? And I think that's definitely likely. Because I think Avengers made the formula, but I think it's a very weird thing that DC Legends kind of took that formula and put it in here. But I think if you rewatch it, you see there's a lot of connections. I think Firestorm being on the team is even though he's not the misfit, he has the bigger form, and you need one to have the other. They're not that good on their own. You have the metal suit. You have just kind of someone who fights, which is Captain America and Sarah Lance. You have the two that are friends, which is Black Widow and Hawkeye, and then Snart and Heatwave, and then they basically have their friendships, and one of them turns evil. I think that's such an interesting duality, especially as when it goes on, you start to see development in these characters. So I don't think DC Legends is completely copying Avengers, because there are differences, but I think you definitely can see where one is taking from the other. So I think this is just a fun video I thought I should make, because it's been bugging me. I was wait, what? Avengers is a lot like DC Legends. And after I just watched Avengers maybe 50 minutes ago, I feel it just felt I had to make this video. So yeah, I know this was a different video. I'm going to be doing some different videos in 2024. I'm definitely going to try out some new formats. I'm going to try some new things, but I'm very excited to show you guys what I have planned. Besides that, thank you guys so much for watching this video. See you guys in the next one. Bye, guys.